everybody, this is me Z here and welcome back to part 2 of redrawing old art. I figured I'd make a part 2 of this video mostly because in my previous one, I showed you guys a drawing I made for my middle school graduation 4 years ago and compared it to my most recent one. Because of this comparison, I just became motivated to make a part 2 of redrawing old art. And again, I will be picking out 2 random drawings from my gallery and creating them in the style I have today. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so the procedure I followed for selecting the old drawing was that I had actually uploaded a good amount of them onto my Wattpad account. Because little me had uploaded an art book over there where I had uploaded my traditional art, digital art, and of course, the good old gotcha edits. But the thing was, I had a very limited number of digital art drawings over there, mostly because I had all of the drawings on my old iPad, but that stopped working and I could not really transfer everything onto my newer iPad. So because of that, I had to choose a drawing which was from that Wattpad account of mine. Alright, so the drawing I selected was of my original character RA, as you guys can see on the screen right over here. And at this point, I just feel like she's the main OC of the channel now, so totally not favoritism. So as we can see from the drawing on your top right hand side, Ari is sitting with a leg up and her elbow is resting on her knee, whereas her other leg, what is even going on? It appears to be tucked behind her. That's a little bit strange. So in my newer drawing, right? So what I did was that I took help from a 3D model. I sort of customized and adjusted to my liking, and this is what I ended up with. Using that as my reference, I first laid down the sketch and made some minor adjustments here and there before delving into the cleanup sketch, which is not exactly the cleanup sketch, even though everything looks so messy right now. But I promise you, I do clean it up later on and make it look a little too clean. And sketches aren't supposed to be super clean. Anyways, right now I'm working on the hand using the watercolor pencil, I believe, or one of the flat point brushes. I don't exactly remember which one it was, but I am really glad with how that hand turned out, mostly because I wasn't using any references other than the 3D model I had with me open on my phone. So I am also really glad about how this hand turned out, because as somebody who struggles with anatomy, mostly with drawing hands, right, I usually give up when it comes to drawing hands, but this time I actually made the cut, and I'm so glad that the hands look like they weren't made by AI. Also, one more thing, you guys probably can't tell in the video, but at the time of working on this sketch, my inner perfectionist side had sort of awoken, because I found myself going back and forth with the sketch and trying to make it look as neat and good as possible, despite the fact knowing that sketches are supposed to be messy. But again, all of us have different preferences, and I just like to make my sketches look neat because they look more defined, they give me more clarity, and it's especially useful when I'm about to work on the line art and I can make some more final adjustments later on. So this is what you guys can see right now in the footage. I'm just going back and forth. I'm trying to make everything look neater and fixing anything which looks off. And I did find a lot of proportions to look off, which I do fix later on during the line art phase. But for now, I am just working on the face. Then later on, I do improve that as well, because for some reason the face was bothering me and I had no idea what the heck I was doing wrong. In the end, once again, the result did turn out okay, and I was really glad about that. And since I don't have anything else to say about the sketch, I'm going to let the background music take over. Over here, you guys can see that I'm just making some more adjustments to the sketch and I'm cleaning everything up before I can go into the line art. I was planning on keeping the drawing in its sketch form and just filling in with color, but then I figured that since my old drawing is fully colored and all, why not just follow the same pattern? Which is why I also did not make my character's leg sort of tucked behind her, but somewhat extended it outwards. So yeah, here we can see me working on the line art, and for this one, I think I used the soft tip brush, which the bleed version, I'm pretty sure. I need to start memorizing names of these brushes, honestly. So the pattern I went for was like having a lightweight line art towards the inner regions of the character and heavy line art outwards. But I feel like in some regions I did make the line art look a little bit heavier than the rest, which I do fix like way later on when I'm working on the base colors as well. Right now, I'm working on my character's hair after I moved on from her face. And we can see over here that I'm just absolutely struggling with just redoing and undoing all of these strokes and everything. Oh, also, for those of you who don't know, Ari is my original character who I also created back in 2019. And she's a humanoid dragon, surprisingly, right? Even though it doesn't really look like it. But I did try to give her that look through the horns, pointy ears, and fangs. As per her backstory, I realized that I never shared it with you guys, and it just makes me feel kind of guilty because she's been on my channel for such a long time, and I'm sure that you guys are also curious as to how she came to be and what she does, what she likes, dislikes, and everything else. So that could also be a topic for another day. So if you guys want me to make an entire lore video dedicated to this cutie, please do let me know in the comment section so that I can prepare it accordingly. Moving on to the arms, I whipped out the felt tip hard brush and went in. Because I was running out of time, I had to use the straight line tool, as we can see over here. And once again, round of applause for the hands because I absolutely struggled at first, but I managed to get it right on the first time when I was doing the sketch. So even in like the subject of my old drawing, I wanted to make it like RA is sort of in her workout clothes, even though the tank top in the old drawing was just connected to the arms, if you know what I mean. So this time I made sure that I don't make the same mistake, and because tank tops are usually loose fitted clothing, I did try to leave that impression later on because I remembered that I did not add a single wrinkle during the time of line art. So I just did all of that when I was rendering and shading, and absolutely struggled with that as well because I was low on energy. But in the end, things did turn out alright, and yeah. The perspective for the foot was a little bit confusing because I was like, wait, how is this supposed to be? And then I was kind of using my foot as a reference. And whatever I ended up with, I just added that to the line art because I was still kind of confused. But then I figured that, hey, it's a learning point for me, right? So here we can see that I'm now going through the layers and seeing if we have anything missing. Just going back and forth, rechecking everything. And over here, I added my character's claw mark, which also has its own separate backstory. But the one I just go with it is that, like, you know, she just once grabbed her cat because he was fighting with another stray cat. So when she pulled him back, her cat scratched her on the eye by accident. I know it's a pretty, like, random story I just came up with right now, but I can totally see that happening, you know? Even though the line art took me forever to finish, I was finally done with it, which allowed me to finally proceed through with the base colors, which you guys will be watching shortly. So after I was done working on the line art, I moved on to the base coloring. I had to do most of it manually, mostly because of the white spaces which I end up finding towards the end of the coloring process. But this time I did use the bucket tool and then fill out the white spaces, so that did not take me quite long. Also, one more thing. As I was working on the shading of the drawing, right, I had my screen recording ongoing, but as I was nearing towards the end of the shading process, my iPad just decided to run out of storage then, and I was so frustrated because I was nearly done. So I had to sort of get this footage from Ibis Paint and do the voiceover by myself over this very footage. So what did I do in my shading process? Honestly, I just went in with some simple cell shading using the felt tip brush. Then I went over the shadows with the blurring tool and then lowered the opacity and went over the shaded regions with the felt tip brush again. Also, one more thing, I just realized that in my older drawing, I did not have any shading done, and this kind of made me feel disappointed because I worked so hard on the shading only for me to realize that, oh no, I didn't do any shading in my old drawing. But I did save another version of this drawing, which I will show you guys later on in the video. But nevertheless, I'm kind of glad that I decided not to add the shading because I'm not particularly pleased with how the shading turned out, because I had absolutely no idea what the heck I was doing, like always. The only good part about the shading was probably the hair and the little glowy effect I add on her head, her blue streaks, and the tail. So I guess it's a win-win for me. So right now I'm just experimenting with the shadows and light on my character's tank top, which doesn't even look like a tank top at this point. And after that, I did put a blob of color underneath to make it look like a shadow, but nevertheless, I scrapped that as well because I remembered that the original drawing did not have such a thing. Here is the shaded version of the drawing, and here are the two drawings put together. The improvement throughout these 5 to 6 years is absolutely insane. I apologize for not showing you guys the second drawing I was going to redraw. Again, my iPad ran out of storage and I had absolutely no idea what to do. So I figured that I would make a separate part of the video for that sole drawing. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!